We continue now at the top of Daf Chaf Gimel Amud Beis in Meseches Nazir. This is Nazir Daf 23b. Rav is in the middle of darshaning a pasuk from Mishlei. The beginning of the pasuk said, "Ach nifsha mikiryas oz." If you have a brother who's offended, he's more difficult to be won over than a strong city. And the pasuk continues, "Umidyonim kivri acharmon." These contentions, these fights, they're like the bars of a castle. And so the Gemara darshans Ach nifsha mikiryas oz zelot. Pasuk, when it talks about this brother who's offended, it's a reference to Lot, Shapiresh me Avram, who's separated from Avraham. Umidyonim kivri acharmon. What does it mean, midyonim kivri acharmon? It means shehitel midyonim kivrichin v'armon. It means that there were fights between them, contentions between them, like the bars on the gates of a castle. And the idea is, Lo Yavo Amoni uMoavi B'Kal Hashem. They were totally separated to the point now where Lot's descendants, the Ammonim, the Moavim, they're not allowed to enter into the congregation of Hashem. That's the idea, that it created this kind of separation like the walls of a castle. And the Gemara continues, Darash Rava v'Tema Reb Yitzchak, Rava Darshan, some say Reb Yitzchak Darshans. Ma'idich Siv, what does the pasuk mean when it says, L'sava yivakesh nifrad, uv'chol tushia yisgala? The person who separates, he's doing it for his own desires, and he turns away from wisdom. And the Gemara says, L'sava yivakesh nifrad zelot. It's a reference to Lot, the person who separated, uv'chol tushia yisgala, the way we darshan that part of the pasuk, shenizgala klono, bevate knasios uv'vate midrashos, that his shame is revealed in the bate knasios, and the Batei Midrashos, the Shuls and the Beis Medrash. The Tanan, as the Mishnah says, Ammoni Moavi Asurin v'Isuran Isser Olam. That again, Ammoni and Moavim, they're Asur to come into the congregation, and that is an Isser forever. And the Gemara continues, Amar Ulo says, Tamar Zinsa Zimri Zina. Tamar, she engaged in an illicit relationship, and Zimri the same thing. He also engaged in an illicit relationship. Tamar Zinsa, Tamar who engaged in a relationship with Yehuda, Yatsu Mimena Malachim Unavim, kings and prophets came from her. Zimri Zina, and Zimri who was in a relationship with a Midianite woman, Naflu Olav Kama Rivavos Mi Yisrael, that caused thousands to die in Klal Yisrael. And the Gemara continues, Amar Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak. Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak says, Gedola Avera Lishma mi mitzvah shelo lishma. An Avera that's done for the right reason, that's even greater than a mitzvah that's done shelo lishma, not for its own sake. The Gemara says, V'amar Rav Yehuda Marab, but didn't Rav Yehuda say that Rav said, Liolam yaso gadam Torah of mitzvahs afilu shelo lishman? He said a person should even do Torah and mitzvahs even not for their sake. Shemitoch shelo lishman balishman, because of the fact that they're done shelo lishma, eventually it will be lishma. And that sounds like a mitzvah lishma is a great thing. And even a mitzvah shelo lishma is a great thing. And so the Gemara says, Ella Ema, rather you should say it's not greater, and Avera Lishma is not greater than a mitzvah Shelo Lishma, but rather say Kim mitzvah Shelo Lishma, it's like a mitzvah that's done Shelo Lishma. And the Gemara says, Dichsiv, like the pasuk says in Sefer Shoftim, Tevorach Minoshim Yoel Eshes Chever Hakeni, Yael should be blessed, and Yael committed an Avera for the right reasons with Sisra. Minoshim Ba'ol Tevorach, she should be blessed above the women of the tent. Man Noshim Sheba'ol, who are these women of the tent? Sarah, Rivka, Rachel, V'Leah. It refers to Sarah, Rivka, Rachel, and Leah. And the Gemara continues, Amar Rabbi Yochanan says, Sheva Be'ilos Baal Oso Rasha Ba'osa Shah. 7 relations that Russia had at that time, talking about Sisra with Yael. Shenemar, like the pasuk says, Bein Ragleh Kara Nafal Shacha V'Gomer. We darshan that pasuk to mean each word is a reference to an act of relations. And the Gemara says, V'Kamisanya mi Be'ila Delay, but didn't she derive benefit from this act of relations? And the Gemara says, Amar Rabbi Yochanan says, Kol tovasan shel Rishoim, eina elo roa eitzel tzadikim. Anything good that comes from Rishoim, it really is only considered bad with regards to the tzadikim. Shenemar, like the pasuk says, Hishamar lecha midaberim Yaakov mitov v'yad ra. Guard yourself from speaking with Yaakov from good to evil. That's talking to Lavan. And the Gemara says, B'shlom Rashaper, I understand why Lavan is warned not to do bad. Elatov amaylo, but why is Lavan warned not to do good? Elalav shmamina tovaso, rahi shmamina. Rather, you see that the good from Lavan is actually bad. And the Gemara continues at the two dots. Kufa, we said above. Amar Rav Yehuda, Amar Rav. Rav Yehuda says, the Rav says, Liolam yasok adam b'torah v'mitzvahs afilu shelo lishman. A person should do Torah and mitzvahs even not for their sake. Shemitoch shelo lishman ba lishman. Because if a person does it shelo lishma, eventually it will come lishma. Shebischar membeis karbanos shehikriv bolak harasha. Because as a reward for the 42 karbanos that Balak, that he brought, even though he did it not for the right reasons, Zacha v'yatzum imenu rus. He merited that rus came from him. V'yam Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Chanina, and Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Chanina said, Rus bas beno shel Eglon melech Moav haisa. Rus was the daughter of the son of Eglon, the king of Moab. And the Gemara continues, Amar Rabbi Chia bar Abba, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Rabbi Chia bar Abba says that Rabbi Yochanan says, Minayin she'ein HaKadosh Baruch Hu mekapeach afilu schar sicha noah. How do we know that HaKadosh Baruch Hu, he doesn't even hold back the reward for somebody who says something in a nice fashion? The ilu bechira, because whereas the older daughter of Lot, the Kiryase Moav, she called her son Moav, so that already is not a proper thing to say that the child came from her father. And Amar le Rachmana, the pasuk says, Al tatzares Moav ve'al tiskor bam milchama. It says you shouldn't go to war with Moav. Milchama hudelo, it's a prohibition not to go to war. Aval tzurei tzarinan, but harassing them is permitted. Ve'ilu tzeira, whereas by the younger daughter, the Karise Benami, she called the child Benami. There was no reference to her father. So Amar le, so HaKadosh Baruch Hu said to Moshe, Rabbeinu al tetzurem ve'al tiskor bam afilu tzeurei lo tzarinan klal. So even to harass them is not permitted. And the Gemara continues, Amar Rabbi Chia bar Avin, Amar Rabbi Yeshua ben Karcha. Rabbi Chia bar Avin says that Rabbi Yeshua ben Karcha says, Liolam yaktim adam lidvar mitzvah. A person should always be quick to do a mitzvah. Shebeschar laila achas shekidmasa bechira litzira, because of the reward for that one night that the older daughter went before the younger daughter. And we will continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Chav Dalid Amud Aleph.